Welcome back, everybody, to the Social Club featuring me, Gray Gamer. And this week I have a very special guest, my good friend Devin.
How's it
Say
going,
what's up,
everyone?
Devin.
How's it going,
So,
everybody?
for those of you who don't know who Devin is, I met him through Howie. I think I met you through Howie, right? Or did I meet you somewhere else along the way?
It was through the Machine Elves and Friends of Friends.
Gotcha. Because yeah, Howie was a guest on the show last week, so our viewers have met him. And Devin, just real quick, I usually like everyone to give their gamer tag or their Steam ID just for my Twitch followers and all the gamers here. So on Twitch, you are known as no, not Twitch, excuse me. On Steam, you are known as
Caranfin, so it's Caranfin. So you can look me up on Steam on that. And I'm also on Facebook, pretty much the same name, Caranfin Naurlin. So Caranfin, and then Naurlain.
nice. So real quick, we're gonna get into a little personal info. Give some of the viewers, listeners. I'm used to saying viewers because of my Twitch stream. I went from podcasting back in the day with, like I spoke to everyone last episode about. I used to host a show called Geeks Unleashed,
Oh, I
and that
remember.
went on. Yeah, that went on for a few years, and then my band took the center stage, and I focused on music for a while. And then I've been doing the streaming thing for a bit, so now I'm back to podcasting because I do love podcasting, and that's why I wanted to get back into it. Um, and so I'm just getting used to saying listeners rather than viewers because between YouTube and everything's videos now, getting stuffed in your face. So
Uh,
forgive me, guys, for saying viewers when I mean listeners. But anyway, we
Video
want to
killed the
give.
podcast
Yep,
star.
exactly. Now it's all about. Well, I feel like it's all about YouTube, but the great thing is, there's a lot of these podcasts get. I put them up on iTunes, Spotify, and then I they're on Podbean, and then they actually wind up getting video. Like it's just a generic black background. It says GG Social Club, and they get actually auto posted to YouTube as well from my webpage. So that's pretty cool. That takes
Yeah.
the work out of it for me. But we're gonna give a little personal info on Devin right now. So Devin, what do you do for work?
I'm a teacher, social studies, high school. So it's an exciting profession.
You know what? I wanted to ask you actually because I just saw about that high school teacher that used gaming as an incentive with his class, and then winded up getting in some hot water. So
Right,
how
right.
do you try to keep your personal life separate from your students? Like, is that like how does that work?
Um,
Like I'm just curious I'm curious about it.
I always thought my favorite teachers in school were the ones who blurred the lines between the personal life and the professional life. I had a teacher, one of the most influential on me, and my love of gaming, Charlie Shapiro. He's still at New Utrecht High School. I think this is his last year. He always says it's his last year. Um, and I'm friends with him now. I see him and I call him Charlie. And for the first few years, it was always Mr. Shapiro until I was like, "Dude, can I just call you Charlie?" And he was like, "Call me whatever you want. Are you for real?"
Mm,
And yeah, he would tell us stories about Dungeons and Dragons and the games that he played, and the adventures his character went through, um, and he ran a gaming club, which now I run a gaming club at FDR High School. So
oh, that's pretty. I didn't even know if they had a gaming club at high school.
yeah. So I started it this year. There was one at the year previous. Someone else was running it, and I had asked her, was it okay, and she didn't intend to start it up. She was doing it for one student. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I have like about 20 some odd students that show up on Friday afternoons. They figured out how to hook up the Wii. Somebody brought in a Wii, and they figured out how to hook it up to the big uh, projector screens that we have in the buildings now. And they were playing Pokemon Challenge or something recently. Kids are
Yeah,
playing D&D. Who's playing Hero Realms? I'm teaching code names to kids, or my friend's game Forgotten Forest, and a whole bunch of stuff. Every couple of weeks, I try to introduce them to some new game.
That's pretty amazing. I actually see we know each other for a while. I didn't know that you did that. Now is that something you do in your free time, or is that along with the curriculum, or?
It's after school,
Hmm.
so it's considered club hours and everything like that. But it's I would yes, we end up getting paid for it, but I would do it for free. Like,
Yeah, sure, sure.
yeah,
No, I get
I
it.
don't, yeah, it's awesome. Like dungeon mastering for teenagers who are just learning the game for the first time. The very first meeting, like 12 kids showed up and 10 of them wanted to create new characters. And if you think back to your first time playing D&D, do you remember how arduous it was to create a new character?
Oh
Like,
yeah. Hmm.
it takes forever to come up with a new character, and there's 10 of them all clamoring for a new character, learning how to play.
That's.
So
I mean, but it just sounds now as an adult, it sounds really rewarding to do that for these kids and open up these endless possibilities and new realms for them. That sounds like something so rewarding. But also, if you put yourself in the shoes of that kid, you know how awesome, like you said, you had Mr. Shapiro used to do that for you. That you're doing something great, and it must feel so cool as that kid, that teenager, when you're struggling with social anxieties and fitting in and all this, and you find an adult who opens up like this whole new universe to you. And I think that a lot of the youth now is so used to being on tablets and games and phones, and it's the digital era is getting better and better and better and more and more and more. But there's something so rewarding to the imagination taking over and playing those old school, what I call pen and paper games, because there's nothing like using your imagination to get through a situation and roll those dice, that visceral like moment of rolling the dice, and oh man, am I gonna get a 20, am I gonna get a 1, but
yeah.
that's pretty awesome. So do you have any great stories about and what went down in one of the after school gaming sessions?
Um, I'm trying to think. There was definitely a there was definitely a lot of excitement out of the D&D group about a week ago. I mean, yeah, I'm managing a crowd of kids. It's almost like a classroom full of kids.
Mm,
So 20 some odd students. So the D&D group was just so loud, and I forget what they did, but they were just going on about like what happened, what they defeated, and how they got through it. Um, I've had some fun games playing Hero Realms, which is a really fun deck building game, and that was it was an experience to like go up against these kids who are learning the game, and you try to take it easy on them, because the game so much better,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying to teach them, and I went to PAX Unplugged back in November, and this was one of the coolest things that I got to do. Brought I brought back pictures. I put them on my drive, and I like did a slideshow for the kids, and I showed them video, and it was just like, look, there's an entire world of people like us, and that was the whole point. It was to show them, kind of what you said. I opened up this world to them of possibilities and things that they didn't know were there, games that they didn't know, people that they didn't know. Now they're making new friends. Seniors are becoming acquainted with sophomores and freshmen, and they're interacting and enjoying these games. And I'm like, look, there's a bigger world out there for this. There's conventions, and there's so many games that you can't even you can't even scratch the surface, no matter how many you own. So it to show them that, and to see their reaction, and to really love it, was great. And yeah, and I made one student captain, and I gave her a dungeon master screen, an extra fifth edition dungeon master screen.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, it's just a gift for you, because it's you're
Should
running a
probably cherish that. Yeah.
yeah, you're running a D&D group. Like, I've tried running a D&D group with them, and it's very difficult. She holds a whole 5th edition group on her own, like 6 kids playing. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's good stuff. You know what comes to mind? I'm listening to you tell me about this, and I'm sitting and I'm remembering back when I used to play D&D, and my hobble of friends and nerds and geeks and freaks that I used to game with. And back in the day, people who played D&D were like the antisocial kind of. I hate to label us with the nerds, geeks and nerds, whatever, geeks, freaks, and nerds. I used to play D&D, and you weren't cool for doing it. But when you compare D&D to like gaming nowadays, don't get me wrong. Listen, everyone knows me. I'm a video gamer. I love the digital spectrum of games, and I love it. It's one of my like biggest passions, one of my biggest hobbies is gaming. But when you think about if when I was a kid, gaming was what it is now, I would be a total shut in and an introvert. I am as an adult, but it's different because I know how to be. I go out to work. We're forced to socialize as adults to some extent. But now when you think about it, these kids would probably sit in their homes playing their games, really antisocial. And for them, I think for the new generation, D&D is actually social gaming. You're teaching these kids how to interact, how to problem solve. So that's a totally new, unique set of skills that doesn't usually come with gaming nowadays. Because even when you play multiplayer games, it's different. I always say it's different than when we were kids, because nowadays you're on the internet, you have a headset. There's no real name, there's no real face. Everyone's a keyboard warrior. That's why you have so many 12-year-olds during Call of Duty saying they fucked your mom, because they
Yeah,
can't. When we were kids, if you went to the arcade and told some kid, "Hey, I beat you in this game. I fucked your mom last night." Guess what? You're
yeah.
gonna go
There's
outside. You're gonna throw fists.
yeah,
So you
oh
couldn't
yeah,
get away with that shit unless you were doing it purposely because you wanted to fight and you could back yourself up. Or sometimes people just wanted to fight and they couldn't back it up. But so I think that this old school, maybe reinvention of the old school, gaming of D&D, this Hero Realms. I never played Hero Realms. I don't know. Is that a newer game? Is that?
yeah. It's a really interesting take on deck building games. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine Magic the Gathering, but instead of buying your own deck, you're
Mm-hmm.
buying from a a marketplace of cards. So everybody has access to those cards. They just have to have the resources on that turn to purchase those cards, add it to their
Okay,
deck,
so
and then
you don't
eventually
buy
use it.
you don't buy a pack of mystery cards. It's not a slot machine. You go
No,
on and you literally say, "This is the kind of deck I want to build. Let me get one of those cards, two of those cards, like
kind
that."
of, yeah, yeah. So you have like a stack of cards. That's the market deck, and you reveal five of them. And every round you draw some cards. You play those cards, and if you'll get gold or
Hmm.
damage, you basically have it's very simplified and it's so brilliant in its simplicity. Um, you get like gold coins or you get damage pool, and you can split the damage pool any way you want. You can use it at any time during the round, and you can use the resource, the gold coins, the gold pool, anytime during the round. And it's like, okay, there's these five cards. I've got 4 gold. I'm going to grab this 2 gold card, and then a new card comes out to replace that from the market deck. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab this card as well, and then a new card comes out, and I put them in my discard, and then eventually they'll get shuffled into my deck, and my deck is grown. So I'm building my deck as I
That's
go
pretty
along.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's really simple, loads of fun, and there's like there's adventurer class cards, starter decks. And when I say starter decks, I'm talking about like 7 cards because you buy the rest of the cards as you go along. And then of
Hmm.
course at the end of the game you split those cards up and you put the basic deck with the basic deck, the starter deck separately, and all that stuff.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So this way, you just reset the whole thing and you can start all over again and build an entirely different deck the next game. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of the things I want to go back to you saying was that that gamers were seen as like the antisocial, and it's so crazy to me. That is such a common misconception, and I feel like that yes, we were probably nerds and a mix of nerds and geeks. And I always like to differentiate between the two. The nerds are
Hmm.
the kids
Yeah.
who do their homework and get
Yep.
A's, and the geeks are the kids that are like, screw homework. I'm playing Final Fantasy VI until
Yeah.
my eyes are bloodshot,
Yep.
which I'm sure you
Hence,
were a
that's
victim
why.
of too.
Hence, why my first podcast was Geeks Unleashed, because I was the latter.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Me too. I was absolutely a geek, and we were all of these things, and yet we got together and we met at like I don't know if you lived in this is so for those who are listening, we're in Brooklyn here and in South Brooklyn, and there was a shop called Pinocchio's on
Oh, I
20th Avenue.
there's a picture of Pinocchio's that was tagged on my Facebook page a couple years back, and it actually came up in my memories because I used to go
Yeah,
there all the time with my friends.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Alex was the owner, and
Hmm.
we used to meet and play, and there was like it was packed in the back room with us playing games. And funny enough, I met a guy there named Alex Schwarzman who went on
Hmm.
to win multiple tournaments and made so much money winning Magic the Gathering tournaments that he opened up King's Games on King's Highway.
Oh,
He was able to buy the building and open in that. So it's just an amazing like little like network
that's
there.
crazy, right?
But so many of us would meet, and then D&D, you would hang out with six of your friends and play a game. How is that antisocial? To
Yeah.
me that was always so much more social. Most other people I knew, you'd ask them, what are you doing on a Saturday night when you were 15, 16? Oh, I was sitting in the house playing NBA Jam. It's like,
Mm.
well, I was hanging out, killing trolls by setting up walls of force and then dropping walls of fire on the other side of the wall of force, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I always thought it was like, working together with these people and making plans to defeat monsters. And there's so much more of a social environment than we ever got credit for.
Oh yeah, agreed. And since we're talking about a lot of the pen and paper games, that we were just discussing, see now, audience, those of you listening, I Devin used to hold gaming nights at his place. Probably what, maybe like 8 7 8 years ago, I would say, and you still do it occasionally up until now, right?
Yeah, it's been far again, adulting and life. Oh God, I can't
Mm-hmm.
believe I just used the word adulting on a podcast. Um, Shoot me now. Um, but yeah, adult life definitely gets in the way. In the past year or so, has diminished how much gaming at my place I get to do. But yeah, 2012, 2013, and a little bit of 2014. That was like the heyday of my place being like gamer central,
Yeah.
Munchkin Land as it was known
Yep,
as.
yep, yeah. We used to.
And
I used to go by every once in a while, in between my, band rehearsals and so on and so forth. And even back then, I was doing the podcast also. So whenever I was free, I would come by and we would play some. He'd always have some new. You know, well, I'm speaking to you in third person.
hmm,
You would always have some really interesting games that I never saw. Like that spy game and some other, wacky games. What was that spy game called? Do you
the
remember which one?
Resistance.
The Resistance. That
Yeah,
was
the
it.
Resistance. The more popular version of that now is Avalon, because
Hmm.
there's some more elements to it that the Resistance doesn't have.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was fun, and Munchkin as well.
Yeah,
We had,
everyone liked
yeah,
that. That was a fun
Munchkin.
time. We'd all pop some beers, get together, play some games. And
Hmm.
actually, when I first started coming by, I didn't know that you were into. I didn't learn till I came to your place to play these physical games that you were also into digital games,
Yeah.
video games as well. And you were always into MMOs, if I'm not correct, right?
Back then, yeah, I haven't been into MMOs for a while now. I somehow got off the addiction. It's amazing. I feel like Felicia Day at the end of the Guild video web series.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it was that really was quite a
You know,
love.
you know
And
what I think it is with
mm,
the MMOs. I feel this is my now. I play a lot of games. I play almost every game that comes out. I try to anyway, because content creator. Hello, I have to at least know when people pop into the channel. I have to know, and on top of it, I enjoy checking everything out. When there's something new coming out, I'm like, "Ooh, I want to check out what's this game about? What's that game about?" But what I think about the MMO market is it was such untouched territory for a long time, and each game that kind of got released at that point in time um was something new slightly, whether they took something that one of the other companies was doing and modified it was like, but it was all very new exciting territory. And then you got into the realm of, once WoW came out and became the king of the castle,
sure.
nobody was really able to ever dethrone them. And I think that you had people try to come up with unique stuff, but they never really hit the nail on the head, So I feel that we haven't really had a true successor or something really innovative or great that we saw, at least on, in America. We haven't seen it. I know there's a lot of great Korean MMOs and
Yeah.
But even those we'll never see. But a lot of them, I don't think that the American audience would like anyway. They're truly grind fests, and usually there's a big pay to win market over there as well. But yeah, I'm waiting for another like MMO to come out that just makes me say, "Wow, this is what an MMO should be in today's day and age." I feel a lot of them that come out are really dated, or they're trying to do what everybody else does without setting themselves apart. So I think that's what it is with MMOs. I've become now. I used to be a big MMO gamer. I played every one that came out. I tried them all. I've gotten more into like smaller, like 4-player, 8-player co-op games
Right.
recently.
Yeah.
I went from the massive multiplayer down to like more competitive type of games. But so you liked RPGs, obviously. You like fantasy based games. So what
Mm.
is one of the more recent games that you've played?
Um. So, of course, the Dark Souls series. I mean, I know Dark Souls 3 isn't all that recent, but that is absolutely one of my favorite series, like hands down
Mm-hmm.
ever. Um, so I am looking forward to this new one, Shadows Die Twice.
Yep.
So
Sekiro or Sekiro. I don't know how you pronounce it.
yeah, I'm actually forgetting I should be on Fatih Vidya's webpage watching all of his YouTube videos on that. Um, but I don't want to spoil anything because I really want to enjoy the game without
Yeah,
any
no, that's one of those
spoilers.
games.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to watch anything on it either. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the Dark Souls series. I appreciate them. I know why people love them, but
Come on, man! You
um,
don't want to just fucking scream at your screen for
I
like
do. But
8 hours. It's amazing.
I scream at my screen, but it's always me cursing out a teammate in a multiplayer game or an
um,
opponent in a multiplayer game. So that's the kind of
well,
screaming I do.
that can
Fucking
happen,
bullshit,
but that can happen in Dark Souls when you get invaded and you're like that motherfucker. You get
Well,
so
you know
angry.
what? I'm actually really excited because the director of Dark Souls, I forget his name, the guy who kind of created it.
Um, I should know his name too. Miyazaki. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
yes, yeah,
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, that is him. So with the release of games like the Division and Destiny and Anthem that just recently came out, and the Division 2, which came out even more recently, um, with all of these games as a live service type of a model, these co-op big things, he said he would love to try his hand and his version at it at some
Right.
point. So he says that's definitely a possibility. So I think after probably whatever projects he's working on now, he may try to open up some type of. And he said that they've touched on multiplayer in the Dark Souls, but it was nothing to the scale of what he'd like to get into.
Hmm.
And I truly love to see his vision in a co-op because
Yeah.
it would probably be some really dark, samurai ninja influenced Diablo style multiplayer game, and I would just love to see his take on it. And that's something that I can really, Now if he came out with a really vicious, hard, bang your head against the wall, but at least you're together type of a multiplayer game, yeah, probably be all over it. But I just prefer to play multiplayer games in this,
I,
at this point in my life.
yeah. I mean, I do love like one of my favorite aspects of MMOs was co-op, but also PvP, and I really loved PvP. And most of the MMOs, I mean, my first MMO experience was Ultima Online, so I'm going back to 1998.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And my God, the PvP back then, even after it became like the Trammel and Feluca world split and everything, the safe world and the bad world and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you went to Feluca, the bad world, and it was just madness. Like I remember the U Moongate on my server was just pandemonium, everybody killing each other, and it was so much fun. And I just loved that about MMOs, that competitiveness. I played D&D online. There was pretty much no PvP there. I played Lord of the Rings online. There was almost no PvP there, and I just never brought myself to get into WoW. And
Mm-hmm.
just to go back to what you were saying about these other companies not being able to topple WoW or become a successor, a lot of these games are very niche. World of Warcraft, it hit the nail on the head. It got a bunch of people, and I never really got into it. I played a little bit of it at a friend's house. It
Mm-hmm.
was just like it's just another MMO to me.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed DDO because it had Twitch reflex and combat and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I would say probably another a favorite game of mine that you could play in the style that you're talking about was like Chivalry, medieval warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give me a first person shooter where I'm using a bow, where I'm practicing archery or using a sword. You've got me sold, you know? And I don't even like first person shooters, but that's
Yeah,
like,
I had a lot of fun with Chivalry. I
yeah.
played it for a little while. We never linked up. We were always trying to, but time we had awkward schedules at that point in time.
Mhm.
I believe didn't the guys who made Chivalry make a magic based like wizard game
Yeah, they
that
made
was kind of
Mirage, Torn
that was
Banners.
it.
Yeah, Mirage.
I
I didn't
couldn't
get
remember what
into
it was.
that.
I never. Yeah,
Um,
I didn't play it. It was a good idea, but I don't think honestly, I don't think that they executed it well. I didn't watch it, but
yeah, there's so much that could be done to Chivalry. Everybody that loves Chivalry is waiting for Mordhau to come out, but that's just one
mm,
of those games where it's like you're taking forever. Like,
mm,
come on, give us a little bit more. But who knows? We'll see. Hope PAX East is coming up in a week, and I'll be
yep,
there. So maybe I'll find
nice.
some a Mordhau display, and hopefully they've got some real plans locked down.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. We're gonna have you back for that to
oh yeah,
discuss some pack stuff. So that'll be something exciting to look forward to. Since I don't usually go to I haven't been to a convention in quite some time. When I had my old podcast, we used to go to a lot more conventions.
right. Yeah.
But right now, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to go to one
I'm
for a
probably
little
gonna.
while. So
So I have a few game development friends. A couple of years ago, someone that I knew had introduced me to a bunch of game developers, and I, got into this community. One of the groups is called Playcrafting, and their whole thing is promoting game development, indie game development, mostly digital games. So there are a lot of coders and programmers, but also tabletop games get showcased at some of these events. And yeah, it's a great community, and I've made a lot of friends through it. And met these weird 6 degrees of separation. Like, how do you know my best friend for 22 years? Kind of situation. And it's like, oh, we met him through Reddit. And it's just so crazy how these people
that's
like,
wild, right?
yeah, yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
something?
I met this group of people through one of my game developer friends at a party for a game release, and while we're linking up on Facebook, they're like, "How do you know Eros?" I'm like, "Well, I'm his best man. I've known him for like 22 years." And
That's
he
funny.
randomly met them on Reddit to play D&D. Um, so yeah, the game development community is a really cool group, and I'm trying to get into it myself with my own role playing game that I was working on for some time. That's kind of taken again a backseat to life and
Mhm.
my professional career and stuff. But yeah, it's really really awesome. There's tabletop games that I've promoted on Kickstarter. There's a mobile app called Cells to Singularity that I helped history check and fact check on. I was like one of the like historical consultants um, for that, and yeah. So when I'm there, I'm gonna talk to some of them, maybe even get some audio that I can share with you of like interviews. Another game called Avaria, which is, and you might like Avaria. It's basically imagine Final Fantasy style parties, but PvP, turn-based
Oh,
combat
cool.
PvP style. It's really really fun. Yeah, so
Yeah,
you'll have
that's
like
pretty cool.
yeah, you'll have like the character who specializes in healing, the character who specializes in damage output, and then like maybe a debuffer or a buffer type class and stuff
And
like that.
is it a dice based like
No, it's this is a video game, so it looks
Oh,
it.
I thought it was a pen
No,
and
no,
paper game for say. I was
yeah,
like, "Whoa, this sounds like a cool idea."
no, yeah, it's a video game, so it's an online video game that you PvP against another player with your like three person party versus
Oh,
their
that's
three
pretty
person
cool.
party.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I played some I mean some people here might hate me for this. I played some mobile games that had that type of mechanic. Like I've downloaded a bunch of like free to play, RPGs on my phone at different points in my life. Like especially when you're doing a lot of commuting by the train, there were points when I would do a lot of like taking the train to the city to go to work. I was working a second job at one point up in Manhattan, and yeah, I downloaded all these different RPGs to try out, and some of them had that type of turn based PvP. It was They look like shit, those games, but and usually
Yeah.
they weren't great, but it was like I could see the potential with some. Well, you know what I'm saying? I could see the potential in what they were trying to do.
The
That's pretty cool.
the artwork for Avaria Versus is really gorgeous. It looks kind of like, imagine a dystopian Final Fantasy
Oh,
style.
nice.
Yeah, like almost like Final Fantasy X on that style, but very
Hmm.
dystopian, like prosthetic body part kind of things and on characters and stuff like that. One of my favorite attacks is called Spam, and it's
Hmm.
literally a bunch of like email envelopes flying out across the screen and hitting your enemy, and it's
That's pretty
just
funny.
hilarious. Yeah, little cute things
That's
like
pretty
that in
funny.
there.
And all right, so you already told us that your favorite game right now is Dark Souls in the Dark Souls series. So if I had to ask you what your favorite pen and paper or physical game is, what would you be able to even sum one up?
Oh boy, at the very moment, yeah, I mean, I really love, I still love Dungeons and Dragons, no matter what.
Hmm.
I mean, as many flaws as I see with it, I still love the hell out of the 3.5 edition. It's just, as long as you can master it, it's just the most customizable like D&D series, you know.
Hmm.
But 5th edition's great because it's so streamlined and it's so easy to get into. Um, I mean, in terms of like board games, man, Hero Realms is really a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the hell out of that. Code Names is really fun too. Very simple, easy to get into. Like you can get anybody into that. You can bring a game of Code Names to like Thanksgiving and play it with your family. Anyone can get into that. Betrayal in the House on the Hill is a blast as well. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to play that.
Mm-mm.
No, that's a really
I
good
honestly,
one.
I never even heard of that one. What
Yeah,
is it called
it's
again?
Betrayal at the House on the Hill. It's basically like it's a co-op game until the event happens, and when
Hmm.
the event happens, it's usually like one person becomes the betrayer, or
Okay.
there's something where it becomes like survival of the fittest kind of situation, and you have to figure out how to survive, which means like other party members will most likely get left behind and die. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So definitely
A
a fun.
thriller, suspense. It
Yes, it
has
is
it all.
suspenseful.
Nice.
Yeah,
That sounds cool.
it comes down to dice rolls, and you're just like, oh man, that's like if you roll above a 5 at this point, we're all screwed, and the person's got 6 dice in their hands, and it's like,
Oh
yeek,
shit.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So
That
it's
sounds
good
pretty
times.
cool. And now I'm gonna ask you if you could sum up one of your best gaming memories.
Oh yeah, man, best gaming memory is Rod of the Seven Parts. So the adventure was the Rod of Seven Parts. My friend Eros that I had mentioned earlier was the dungeon master, and so when you put piece together the Rod of Seven Parts, I'm pretty sure this was built in. Whoever wielded it became lawful neutral. So my chaotic neutral rogue, my very first D&D character, who I still recreate every so often,
Hmm.
Loken, a drow dark elf rogue. He became lawful neutral, and so he had the Rod of Seven Parts, and we were fighting the final enemy. This I think the thing's name was Mishka, something like that, Miska,
Hmm.
and it was the general of the demon spider wolves or something. It was like spider body, wolf heads, and one human head, kind of like a centaur
Hmm.
body on this weird
Oh,
amalgam.
okay.
Yeah, weird amalgam of creature. And we're attacking him and doing all these things, and people are getting like injured, and we're not doing very well. It looks like we're gonna die. And so I was like, okay, I can shape change with this thing. And I said, I know that I can use it as a spear as well as a bludgeoning weapon. So I turned to my DM and I said, I turn into a Titan, shape change into a Titan, which made my Thaco very low. I think it was a Thaco of 4, really taking it back to advanced D&D for the older fans out there right now, the older listeners. And I rolled and I made a cold shot against the thing's head, and I hit it, and it died. And apparently, like, that was one of the stipulations to finishing him off, was to stab him in the head, with a wad of
Oh
seven
wow.
parts.
Hmm.
And the thing was, his blood got on me. So his blood was poisonous, and I failed my constitution check, and my character died. So the bard picked up the staff and shape changed into a gold dragon, and we got the hell out of there. He picked up my body and flew out, and all the other characters had flying capabilities too, and we got out of there, and we got out of hell, the abyss, and made it back to one of the planes. I forget which plane it was. The plane that the Wind Dukes lived on, and they revived me and all that. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah, it was one of the most incredible adventures. Other than actually beating Loth, that those these two are very closely tied. My character Loken was a dark elf who had a revenge complex against Drow priestesses and Loth because his family was sacrificed to Loth. So
Hmm.
we eventually did the Demon Web Pits adventure and defeated Loth. And so that was also up there, like shooting her with the +5 arrows that I had saved since level like 10 that I still had. That I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I am never using these because I know I'm going to need them for this, for in case we ever fight a god. I need these, and she was it. And yeah, so those are my two tied favorite memories. Taking out some demon spiders. Got a thing with spiders. It's funny.
I'm listening to your story, and I'm like, I want you to like, I want you to write this story. I want to read the escapades of you know, your rogue and that fight he went through. It sounds good, man. I mean, you could pitch that to an anime right now.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know,
hey,
right?
hey. I
Like,
mean, like
forget Goblin Slayer. It's like
that's
God
it.
Slayer. Um,
That's it. I mean, it's
there's so
done
many
deal.
of
I would
those.
watch it. You know.
Uh, One of the things about like storytelling and world building that I just because I like I said earlier, I was trying to create my own system. I'm still working on it. At some point, I'll get back to it. And of course, I was also creating my own world, partially for my D&D group. And it's just funny, like I started off with one piece of paper, and then it expanded into 9 pieces of paper, eventually into this big fold out map. And I just went to see Tolkien's exhibit at the Morgan Museum. Um, so the Library Museum
Hmm.
in New York is having this Tolkien exhibit, and for anyone who's into fantasy or gaming, even if you haven't read The Lord of the Rings, even if you're not a big fan of the movies, it's really worth going to check out because he drew his maps on like graph paper and wrote some of his stories on like blank pages and essay booklets that his college students were handing in essays on. And just
Hmm.
being a teacher, of course, and getting bored with grading, you just think to yourself, how many stories could I write here on these these blank pages
Yeah.
of things? And he was like the first dungeon master. Like seeing his maps drawn in pencil and pen on graph paper and loose leaf paper, and it was just so funny to me. The nostalgia of, man, this brings me back to like when people were drawing their maps out on like on graph paper that they like
Hmm.
grabbed from a math class back in high school. It was really like a throwback, and it was a lot of fun to see. And it was absolutely gorgeous. So I
Yeah.
mean, Tolkien is like the father of all of this. When you really get down
Yep.
to all of this
100%.
fantasy stuff
Hmm.
that we love, all comes down to like that kernel that started with the Lord of the Rings. And Gary Gygax was extremely, extremely influenced by that and a bunch of other series of books, um, you know, that are really great, great reads.
Yeah, that's it's funny because I speaking of the graph paper, when I used to play D&D back in high school, I had a friend. We used to do all. He always was dungeon master, and but I used to help him because I was always an artist and I used to draw all the time. I was pretty good at it, you know. So I used to help him with all the maps and stuff, and we would draw stuff together. And yeah, graph paper. It was something that totally blanked from my mind. I wouldn't even remember it until this conversation between you and I. And now I'm like, wow, the graph paper. That was what we used, you know.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. That's these all this nostalgia is just great. Um, Now I'm gonna ask you who your favorite character in a game is. Now it can be a video game, it can be one of your stories or one of your pen and paper games or a D&D booklet. Like when you think of a badass, like really cool character, who's your in a game? Who's the first character that comes to mind?
So again, it really, I know it sounds so silly because it's like, it's like your first love, was it's Loken. And because I recreate him for every edition of D&D that I play, even when I play MMOs or online games like Dark Souls, I'll try to recreate his character. Um, I just, the character is supposed to be an outcast, like a character who's shunned and not trusted, and I like that experience. It's like a vicarious experience for me, kind of being like a societal norm in a way. Uh,
Hmm.
Playing this character and having that vicarious experience of like a really good dungeon master will take my character and make my life hell because
Hmm.
I'm basically a race that is despised by everyone on the surface, you know. So trying to
Hmm.
overcome that challenge is always a lot of fun to me. It's something that I enjoy experiencing because it anything that puts you out of your comfort zone is good to experience, and
Yeah.
so that's always been fun. And also that character is just like he was impulsive and he was calculating and impulsive at the same time. The way I played him, I used him to be like the team strategist, but
Hmm.
he would also like I remember in a fifth edition game I was playing wherein I just recently recreated him a couple of years ago for a fifth edition game, and this guy, this like highwayman, was like stopping us, and he's talking, and I'm hiding out in the bushes, and the guy's just talking. He's basically making it obvious that to pass through the road, we have to pay them money. So they're trying to extort us. They're no government agency. They're not like tollmen or something like that. So in the middle of him talking, I just like I think it was my dagger. I just snuck attack him with the dagger throw or a shot from my bow and
Hmm.
killed him. And the DM was like, "Well, everybody roll initiative." And I was like, "Screw this! Why are we waiting?" Um, like what are we? They're gonna get the jump on us or something. So yeah, I always loved playing that character as that kind of like, you know, um, do what needs to be done, even if it means kind of doing something that's really dark or even maybe borderline evil. So I loved him, and I still love playing him. Um, yeah, I've played a few other things over the years. I've really enjoyed playing dwarven priests. When
Hmm.
you put on a Scottish brogue or a terrible, terrible Scottish brogue, this is a terrible accent. And I act like I'm drunk all the time and I'm drinking fucking holy ale, and yeah,
Nice.
silly stuff like that. And yeah, but really, being the dungeon master in the end is probably my favorite thing to do. I really love running a game and being able to be the entire world. Because then I get to be
Mm.
the orcs and the goblins and the bad guys that are the bad NPCs that are hanging out in the tavern, and yeah, things like that. It's definitely an enjoyable experience being the dungeon master too.
Nah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you know it's funny. I used to. There was a point when I wanted to be into the dungeon master, but then I like to sit back and just go on the ride. I like the excitement of not knowing what your friend or stranger who was going to be the dungeon master, what they were going to throw your way. I always like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can see both sides of the coin. The one creating the worlds and the one experiencing the worlds. They
Yeah.
both have their unique, pros, and I'm not even going to say cons because I don't think there's a con to either of them. I think that it's one of those, amazing experiences. If anybody here has not played D&D, you really need to go, or even any type of in-person role-playing game, pen and paper, even if it's something like Warhammer, anything,
Yeah.
I've never played Warhammer, but I used to play D&D, and I played some of these other games.
Like
And it's
Vampire the
something.
Masquerade,
Yes,
Werewolf,
yes, yes.
all the what was that? The White
Hmm.
Wolf Company or something that put
Yep.
them out.
Hmm.
Mage the
Hmm.
Ascension. Yeah.
Anything like that, go and just find, go on Reddit. Go. I think there's a
Meetup.
dun. Isn't there a D&D app now? There's an app
There's apps
for.
for it. There's meetups for these things too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like on Mondays, I haven't been since December because life has just been way too busy since Christmas break. Like the past 3 months, it's just been madness. Going on 4 months now, and at a place called Amity Hall in the city on the Lower East Side. It's Monday nights have Neek Nyeek
Mm-hmm.
meetups, and people just get together to game. And uh, yeah, there's they don't do role playing games too much, but some people there are interested. And you can look on Meetup to find groups. You can go on Reddit to find groups. There are players out there, and it's definitely worth giving a shot, even if you give it a don't give it just one try though. Give it a couple of days. Give it, give it, let your character get to second level, third level. Really give it a try and see the progression and see how you enjoy it. It'll only take a couple of weeks for that to happen if you're
Hmm.
playing like every week or bi-weekly or something like that. Um, it's one of the best experiences you'll have. And if you didn't enjoy it, you made a couple of new friends and you had some good times and some laughs. Probably half the time you're talking about other video games or movies or whatever. It's all pop culture references while you're playing D&D.
That's true. Also, for those listening, Devin and I we spoke very very briefly on the possibility of going forward, maybe live streaming to Twitch some board games or pen and paper games. So if that's something that you guys would be interested in, hit me up on twitch.tv/Gray Gamer or on my YouTube channel, which is still youtube.com/Geeks Unleashed. You'll see the Gray Gamer logos and all that stuff, but they wouldn't allow me to switch. When I switched over from my old podcast of Geeks Unleashed, they wouldn't allow me to update the name, the URL to Grey Gamer. I had to keep it Geeks Unleashed. So for any confusion that causes, that's the reason why. And I didn't want to. I had so much nostalgia there from old stuff that I did. I didn't really want to get
Right.
rid of it all
I
yet,
don't
so
blame
I
you.
kept it. So yeah, if that's something you guys would like to see, that's something you'd be into, and maybe start a new community, definitely hit me up. And I would like to work with Devin on this going forward. So
Yeah, happy
me
to
knowing
host.
how, yeah, me knowing how to do all the streaming and all the the audio video stuff behind the scenes, I think we could definitely make that happen.
Absolutely. And I've got the space for it and I've got loads of games.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. There's a fun game, Fiasco. That would be a good one. It's basically an improv game. So it's nothing but role playing. And I think that would be an interesting one to stream at some point because
Yeah, I mean,
you'd have
like I
to
said,
act and yeah,
well, I can definitely outside of the podcast we'll discuss this, but yeah, I
sure.
think we can definitely get you a Twitch page started and maybe have people come through your gaming nights, like virtually come through and hang out and see what's going on. And even if there's a way, who knows, maybe you can have like if you're going to be the dungeon master, maybe the people in your chat will be the ones playing. I mean,
Yep.
there's got to be some type of like app for rolling the dice. Maybe you'd be the one to use the dice app to roll for them and just take chance apiece. It could be something unique. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to discuss those possibilities. And we're going to wrap this episode up before it's too long. We're almost at the hour mark. So I
Hmm.
just want to thank everyone for coming along and hanging out at the social club. And a very special thank you to Devin. And thanks for coming along and hanging out with us today.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you, all
Anytime.
the listeners. And
And we're definitely gonna, like I said, we're gonna hear from Devin again after he goes to PAX. So we're gonna have an episode in the next few weeks
yeah,
discussing that.
for sure.
That
Looking
one
forward to it.
we may have a group discussion for that one. So we'll see. I'm gonna see who we can include on that episode just to spice it up a little bit. But I wanted to have this one on one to let everyone introduce you as a personality, let everyone know a little background on you. So once again, thank you for joining, and we'll catch you all on the flip side, everybody. Peace.
Take care.